Hey everybody, this is David Warner with another M365.video SharePoint short. Today we're going to continue talking about list formatting and how we can automate our development and deployment. Today's video is going to focus on using the Office 365 CLI instead of PowerShell as we've seen in previous videos. So we're going to start by taking a look at the benefits of the CLI, and then we're actually going to see it demoed by Waldek. Now, Waldek is one of the founding fathers of the CLI. He's on the PNP core team, and he was gracious enough to join me for this demo. So thank you, Waldek, very much. And then we're going to see some useful links at the end and samples on how you can utilize this automation strategy using either PowerShell or the CLI. While there's many benefits to using the Office 365 CLI, we're only going to cover a couple of them on this video. The first is platform independence. You can use any operating system, including Windows, Mac OS, Linux, whatever it is that you decide to develop on. The second is that the CLI is an open source PNP initiative. Now this means that you can actually help shape the future of the PNP by contributing new code, enhancements, bug fixes, features to the open source repository provided by the PNP. Very, very cool stuff. I definitely encourage you to take a deeper look into the CLI. No doubt you'll find additional benefits that'll suit your development style. Next, we're going to jump over to a webinar that I recorded with Waldek, and he's going to walk us through on how we can use the CLI to automate our list formatting development deployment.
With me today on the SharePoint short special edition is the one and only Waldek of the PNP core team, one of the founding fathers of the Office 365 CLI. Waldek, thanks for teaming up with me on this demo today.
Sure, absolutely.
I appreciate it. So building on this list formatting deployment strategy for PowerShell, I realized that this is excluding some non-Windows users, right? Because PowerShell is really only used for Windows users. Well, yourself, Andrew Connell, Stefan, a lot of users in the industry, in the community.
Video, and you can go on like that forever.
Pretty much everybody outside of the US, right? Anybody, yeah. Even I have a Mac that I use sometimes, so this is great. The CLI is fantastic. But this productivity tip that I've shown so far hasn't really helped anybody. It's like, thanks for the unproductive productivity tip, David. I can't use it. So a few days ago, just literally a few days ago, I reached out to Waldek and was asking about the CLI to see what we could use and if it was available, and the methods that I was using in PowerShell, were they available in CLI? And they weren't at that time. But in literally just a few days' time, Waldek jumped in, got into the beta, and made it available, and agreed to jump on a demo with me to show how the custom tasks could be created in VS Code on a Mac, and the CLI could be executed to update a view within the SharePoint list. So thank you, Waldek. I mean, you're awesome, man. This is really appreciated.
Sure, and I mean, it is a funny thing, right? Because I mean, we've been working on CLI for now almost a year, and we always try to find like what are the things that people need the most, and somehow we totally dropped the ball on view formatters and column formatters. Like, it didn't struck any of us to have like, okay, so how would you deploy them? And it's like, yeah, and until you mentioned it, actually, it was like, crap, we don't have that.
Yeah, and so it's amazing. And just as a little soapbox side note here, that's what's so cool about the PNP community to me, is you're thousands of miles away from me. We connected, we were already connected on LinkedIn, but we started the conversation about it, worked together on finding something that works for everyone, and here we are, showing it off.
And we mentioned you also like every week on the show, the SP Dev Weekly show.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Believe me, I appreciate that. That's awesome. So, all right, so Waldek's going to jump in, and he's going to demo how that can be done with the Office 365 CLI and VS Code.
Cool. Yeah, let me share my screen.
All right.
And we're ready to go, I reckon.
Yes.
All right. So what you see here is VS Code. I've created two tasks. One for creating column formatter, and then the other one is for view formatter, and they will be applied to a list that I have here. So here I have a list or two lists, one with a column which shows the status of tasks, and then we will apply formatters to that. And then another one is a list created by David, which shows student grades. Right, so we want to show that in a kind of neater way than just have a table with numbers.
Yep, cool.
So going back to VS Code, as I said, we have two tasks. These tasks are driven by two bash scripts that I created that use the Office 365 CLI. So one for the column, and they are similar, right? So the only thing that they do is that each one requires you to give the URL of your site, give the name of your list, and then the one for the column requires you to have the name of the column, the one for the view, the name of the view. Then you pass the path to the formatter file, which is here, and they're stored here. So in here, for example, for column, you will see that what we do here is something simple. Depending on the value of the field, we add a class to the field, which will then control how the field is being shown, and also we add an icon to it. Right,
Cool.
so relatively simple sample created by David. Again, I didn't do any of that. Not taking credit.
I think I got it from the community GitHub, so
exactly. And then eventually, in the end, what we do is we call the CLI with the command that we added in the beta version of 1.10, and which basically updates the field and sets the formatter. So let us do that now. I am already logged into the tenant, so I don't need to do any of that. Let me go to the tasks, and then from the list, let me get the task for formatting the column, enter. And we don't need to parse the output, because in VS Code, when you run a task, VS Code offers you also the ability to show the results, show the output of the task, format it so that you can go through it. Well, in this case, we will either get error if something failed or done if it's done. So there's nothing really for us to process here. So we can just skip through that, enter, and now we see that the CLI is being run, configuring column formatting, done. We can hit enter to hide the terminal. We can switch back to SharePoint, go back to our list, refresh the view, and now you see a neatly formatted status of the task, right? So with that, you can way easily see whether a task is done, in progress, or blocked.
Awesome. Yeah, and you never had to copy paste Alt tab or Command tab or anything like that.
Exactly. Because I mean, for this one, it's pretty easy. I mean, the formatter isn't really that big, right? I mean, it's 23 lines of code. It's something that you might have pasted in line.
Yeah, or maybe even written directly in the browser, right? Some simple ones are that easy-ish.
Yeah.
if you remember the formatting schema.
Somebody, yeah, I'm yet to see somebody who would actually do that. However, yes, the option is there. Now,
yes.
when on the other hand, we switch to the formatter for views, you'll see that there's like significantly more code, right? So the one that we have here is like 500 lines of code. You are very unlikely to type that in browser.
I would agree.
Yeah. I am not buying, right? So again, for this one, we have yet another task, which is similar, right? Again, we pass the URL of the site, name of the list, name of the view, path. Then the one thing that we have to do, and that's also the thing that you have to keep in mind when you work, for example, here in Bash, like your command arguments cannot span across multiple lines. Like we have here 500 lines of code, and to use that in Bash, you have to put all of that into a single line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you have to find a way, like how do you strip that? Now, if your string isn't really that long, you can do it easily. There is a way to easily strip characters in Bash, but if your string is 500 characters long, then that won't work, because only that part, to load the string and strip 500 lines of enters, will take ages. Seriously, that won't work. So instead, another approach that you can do is that there's a tool called JQ. And if you work on a Bash with JSON, it's a tool that you will most likely already have. And the tool allows you to work with JSON, parse it, navigate through it, query it. So it's basically a JSON processing tool in Bash. Because unlike in PowerShell, there is nothing available for that in Bash out of the box. Hence, you actually need a tool like JQ.
Very cool.
And one of the things that it can do is basically to put all of the or the whole string in single line, right? And it does that really fast. So we do that, And then another trick is, and that took me seriously a few hours, like this particular bit here.
Yeah, I saw your tweet on asking about time zone differences or that.
Yeah, exactly. Like seriously, like this is how you have to pass JSON string to a bash command. And the reason for that is JSON string has combination of double and single quotes. And you have to pass them as is. They're not unlike here, like in bash, you would use double quotes to escape, for example, a space.
Mm-hmm.
But in here, first of all, we want to get not the variable name, but the contents, what is in there. So we have to include it in double quotes. But then again, we have double quotes in there, which we also need to escape because otherwise they'll be parsed in bash. So then we end up with single quote, backtick, single quote, double quote, and then again.
It's like Inception for quotes.
Exactly, and then triple.
Yeah.
Right, because you have a pair of these, and then a pair of these, and then a pair of these, and then it's like you have to just put them in there in that particular order, or it will fail, and it will not tell you exactly why it failed.
Oh wow, yeah.
So you have to have all of that in place. So as such, to verify that it works, let's run our task, list view formatting JSON definition deployment CLI. Continue without output. It's running. It would take just a little bit longer. There you go. It's brilliant.
Not much though. That's fast. Yeah.
The first time that I run the task, it took 3 seconds, maybe 4, and I thought that it would take that long to apply the formatter, but apparently it doesn't. So maybe it had something like warming something up. Maybe it had to refresh access. Okay, I don't know. But now it's blazingly fast. So let's switch to our view. Let's switch to our tab, refresh the page, and we should have a beautifully formatted cards with grades created by, is it by yourself? Is it community sample?
It is a community sample. It's in the PNP, but I did create it. Yeah, so this is what I could take credit for, I guess. You can tell by the color, right?
So it is community sample created by yourself. There you go, right? Cool.
So awesome.
There you go.
Yeah, so there you go. As simple as that. And also, if anybody's wondering, the previous videos do show how to create the VS Code custom tasks. So make sure you watch those if you haven't already. It's a really simple process. But the highlight here is all of that information and that tip on the escaping that Waldek found. And thank you for that. I'm sure that's going to save hours of time for tons of other people.
Yeah. Definitely.
Nobody wants to write a JSON in a single line, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that is one, and then 2, try to think like, okay, so how do I escape that?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So awesome. Okay. Well, thanks again for your time, Waldek. So
sure, you're welcome.
I appreciate everything.
I hope you've enjoyed this video on how you can utilize the Office 365 CLI for your list formatting automated development deployment needs. I also wanted to say thank you to Waldek for recording the webinar with me. I really do appreciate it. Here's some useful links to part 1 and 2 of the videos, the GitHub docs and samples, as well as a link to the actual samples that you've seen Waldek and myself demo on the videos in this series so far. Thanks again for watching.